everybody, and welcome to part 3 in the Peter Mackereth interview. Today we are going to be looking at Peter's probably best known work, which is his time at the Christie Hospital. So this is where he was managing and leading the department of complementary therapies, how he developed the School of Integrated and Complementary Therapies. And then we've also got another demonstration from him, and this is with a technique he calls comfy breathing, which is absolutely fabulous. Peter also then goes on to talk about his work integrating acupuncture points into his reflexology treatments. So a packed session for you. I'm now going to get out of the way and over to Peter.
And then, of course, I ended up working at Christie's, which was originally...
Thank you. I was just going to ask, how did the transition come?
Well, I was working as a nurse tutor and when you work as a nurse tutor, you usually have a clinical role as well. So my clinical role was in the neuro department, and I was supporting the neuro department to develop a complementary therapy service, and then starting my PhD work. And there is a little sub-story to this, is that one of my patients, right early on, I'd seen him for about a year, and he'd really been helped by reflexology, but I'd noticed that he'd got little petechial bruising. Because I'm a nurse and because petechial bruising worries me and makes me think there's something hematological going on here, I phoned his doctor and said, "Hi, it's Peter, I've noticed so-and-so has got little hemorrhages," and I took his shirt off and he's got them all over his back. Turned out he had a form of leukemia, which he'd probably been living with for some months. And he ended up having treatment and continued for another year or two, doing fairly well, but then deteriorated again. But he left some money in his will for the complementary therapy evaluation research project that I was part of. So, which was wonderful. So I benefited from that. There was no way I was suggesting to him, "Leave me your money."
Oh, no.
About that. But, as I say, I benefited from the joys of working with people, but also from his generosity, because the hospital just said, "Oh, by the way, Peter, your department they've given you this money, and because of your services." So which was brilliant. So that helped fund some of the research work we were doing. So yeah, that was early on. So then the job came up at Christie's, which is to manage and lead the complementary therapy team, which is then in 2000. It was only a couple of people doing it part-time with some limited funding. And over the 20 years of my work there, I've been growing the team, and we ended up at one point with 35 therapists, some of them part-time, some of them full-time. And we always had a research assistant. So we've done a number of studies, and sometimes we've had 2 research assistants, and we've had people helping us with our stats that we've managed to find money for. And we developed a specialist school for complementary therapies, which we call the Integrated Therapies Training Unit, which is linked to the School of Oncology and which still runs today, running courses. And I'm still part of that teaching team, and that generated income. And we did for a while run regular conferences, but around 2016, when I was supposed to retire, some of that work started to quieten down a bit, because I thought, I can't run a conference and be retired at the moment. So we haven't run a conference, I don't think, since 2016, but the conferences at one point were quite big earners for us. And that helped to pay for therapists and pay for research studies. And of course, every little pilot study that you do, you can use that experience to put in a grant for a bigger study. So, we've had grants for 300K, to do evaluation studies. We had a project where we were evaluating complementary therapies in palliative care. We had a project where we were providing chair massages for carers. We had projects around evaluating acupuncture. So, you know, we've been doing, and one of our biggest projects was providing treatments to patients with needle phobia, hence discussion about needle phobia,
Yeah.
and claustrophobia for patients going through radiotherapy where they have to wear a mask for their daily radiotherapy treatments. So the therapists became very skilled over the years in using techniques in order to help people to stay calm through cannulation, through mold making, through scans. You know, these patients would have walked. You know, they would have said, "I don't
The
want."
people you had there were invaluable then, absolutely invaluable. Yeah.
So you know, someone's having radiotherapy. So as part of if they're in the radiotherapy department and they're having a mold made, which holds them in the machine, they can't move. So
Oh,
something claustrophobic, that would be very, very scary.
terrible. Yeah.
So I might be sitting while they're having their mold made and
Oh,
work.
do we have another demo coming up?
That might be one of the things I might do, is some of those techniques of doing some relaxation.
Yeah.
And then obviously when they go into the machine, you can't be in the room with them because obviously it's radioactive.
Yeah.
But on the voice, the tannoy, you know, you could speak to them.
Yes,
They
through
can
the
hear your
tannoy,
voice.
whatever you call it. Yeah.
So one of the little techniques that we do very much works with the hand and the idea of the lung press and solar plexus breathing. So we put one of these stars in the hand, and while I'm working with them, I will be getting them to hold the star in the hand and talking through them that this is the lung area, this is the diaphragm, this is solar plexus, and we're after a calming response. So what we're looking for you is to connect your breathing and not doing like a breath in, but a, you know, really nice belly breath in.
Yes.
And that's why we call it a comfy breath. And so they would be working their lung area and their diaphragm by using the squeezy ball in order to self-treat. And I would be saying to them, you know, like just before we went in, I was working the diaphragm, I was working the lung area, and I'd like you to continue that very discreetly with your hand, because obviously they're being radiotherapied up here,
Yes.
and do some movement with their hand. And they can be doing this with a hand on the couch, and I would be taking them through that. Take a comfy breath in and squeeze. Remember, we're working the lung area, we're working the diaphragm, so we're just letting go of the breath and allowing your body to sink and feel safe and comfortable while you're having your treatment, and so forth and so on. So I'm using my voice in a therapeutic way, but using points on the hand in order to work it. And of course, you know, they may not have this with them. So I'd just be saying, pop your thumb into this area. And then when you're sitting, maybe you're waiting to go and see a doctor, take a comfy breath in and then breathe out. Okay. So with solar plexus breathing, I have my own particular way of doing it.
Oh,
So
good.
I will just demonstrate. So
Do you know something, Peter? I have to confess, I am a huge Strictly fan, and I believe you are as well. And on It Takes Two, they have this demo time, and I just wish that there was the music or whatever it is that they have, because I feel that there is a demo coming on. So this is going to be great.
Say I don't often use the word take a deep breath. If I'm in X-ray and I'm telling someone to take a deep breath, it's a different type of process. You're wanting them to expand their lungs in different ways. So
Yeah.
I say take a comfy breath, and I mirror it, and I say I'm taking the breath down towards the belly. So, you know, classic solar plexus points. So this is my little. I'm only going to do 5. Sometimes I'll do 6, but I'll do 5. But I do it in a particular way. So, Stephen, if I could just bring your attention to my thumbs, just gently pressing on this point here. You can feel that? Yes. Take a comfy breath in. And then breathe out. And again, just notice your feet softening, softening. And if you need to breathe in between, you just Breathe, take a nice normal breath in between. And then when you're ready to go again, take a nice comfy breath in. Hold the breath for a moment and then let the breath go. Just noticing your body softening, softening. Third time, when you're ready, take a comfy breath in. And then let the breath go. Just allow your body to soften. And breathe normally in your own time. And then when you're ready to go again, 1, 4. And then let the breath go. So breathe normally for a moment. And just for the last one, what I'm going to get you to do is to take a breath in and then top it up with another breath. So when we're ready, we're going to take a comfy breath in, hold for a moment, sniff, and then let the breath go. And allow the jaw to soften, the mouth to open. And just let your body sink and soften. So my sort of way of doing solar plexus breathing is to put a sniff in it. Now, when I come from this, not taking a deep breath, allowing people to, or encourage people to take a breath in between, is that I work a lot with people with lung cancer, and they don't breathe at our rate. They might be breathing 25, 26, 30 breaths or even more a minute. And you can't ask them to do the classic, take a breath in and count up to 7.
Yes. Yeah, I noticed that difference. I'm thinking, oh, this is an awful lot, less.
No numbers. So
No.
we don't do numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers are useful for
and then
hypnosis.
the breathing at their own rate in between as well. Yes.
Yes. So the idea of putting a sniff in it is that as you take a breath in, the airway pressures drop at the peak of inspiration, which allows you to top up and to shift a more volume into the lungs. So you're taking a breath in, hold, sniff, and your chest will expand that little bit more. So it's a way of giving people a little bit more oxygenation. And we know that when people are well oxygenated, they are calmer. The heart rate starts to come down. They're better oxygenated. But for somebody who's got compromised respiratory function, the sniff just gives them a little bit of a top up on the breath. And you're only doing it once in a cycle of 5 breaths. And lots of physios use it. I use it as a nurse post-operatively for patients to encourage them to cough and expectorate. But we can put it in to the reflexology process as a way of deepening. So I would do this at the beginning of the session and at the end of the session, and work with that, or work with a different point, like step 41. Yes. Of course, this is kidney one, which is a nurturing point. Yes. Kidney points are all around the heel, and the theory of kidney points is that you're nurturing the spirit. And I often think in reflexology that we ignore a lot of this area, and what we really
Sorry now, Peter, we can't see just what, because you had your holding hand in the way just then.
So I'm gonna just lifting your foot. So all the areas under here, there's loads of kidney points. And so for me in reflexology, it's about nurturing the root. So I'm very keen on lots of work around these areas. So very, very keen. So I have a background in acupuncture as well as reflexology, and trained in acupuncture. So I'm very conscious of the overlap between reflex points and acupressure points. I'm a big fan of Moss Arnold.
Yes.
Reflexology. I met him back in the day, and one of his work
years ago. Yes.
So I'm very, very inspired by his work. But I've noticed, there are classic points in the, when we talk about the Achilles.
Yes.
This is about helper areas we probably know from reflexology. Yes. But this point here is spleen 6.
Yes.
So, yeah. And this is good for hot flushes. Good for
wonderful. Yes.
Good for lots of things.
Yes.
So, and for fatigue, it's very good for fatigue. It's also good for nausea. It's good for digestion. But the big one is hot flushes. And a lot of my patients have hot flushes. Some of the men do too, because they've got prostate cancer and they're having female hormones. So I include that point in working, and I tell people about it. I say this point is well researched, and it can help with. So I'm including it in the work. So we'll work on that point too.
Okay, so I'm diving back in because we move on to a different subject, which is a perfect installment for our final video with Peter Mackereth, which will be next week. And in that video, Peter and I discuss one of our passions, and I'm laughing because it's constipation. Both of us have got some techniques that we absolutely adore using on clients. And oh gosh, you absolutely are going to have to watch how Peter helps his clients with constipation. Because of course, with Peter, it's combining this with drug-induced constipation, of course, because that can be one of the terrible side effects when you're going through cancer. So there's, of course, a lot of laughter and a lot of fun, but a lot of great learning coming up next week. We've also got the I Love You hand reflexology technique. So more practical demonstration. And then I'm sure you will want to know this bit is where can you learn from Peter? So all of that next week. And so until next week, stay safe, stay well, and thank you so much for watching.